And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 142nd episode, recorded on Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, joined tonight by my co-host, Kathy Amos. And today we will be discussing your Indiana Hoosiers win, tough, grinded-out win over the Northwestern Wildcats, 68-64. That brings their record to 11-4 overall and 3-1 in the Big Ten. But as normal, we will start this episode with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And Kathy, tonight I'm going to go to something you pointed out here. This was the 900th victory career-wise for the program. So congratulations to all the IU alumni and current players, staff, coaches, whoever been involved in the IU program since its inception. But tonight marks the 900th win in program history for the Hoosiers. And as usual, our banner moment is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, which includes the Assembly Call, Crimson Cast, X's and Joe's, and now the Dribble Drive. Home Field is constantly releasing new apparel or releasing new schools or updating their products for schools in their existing line. You're bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Not only did you get quality apparel, but you're supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelley School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23 to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23, HOME23, for 15% off. Once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And really didn't see a whole lot of news here. One piece of news, Kathy, I'll pass along. You and I and a friend of ours who were texting in a group about this. Paige, UConn had released the news on Paige Beckers having a knee injury, but luckily for Paige Becker, and I will admit, I am a huge Paige Beckers fan. It's not any kind of season-ending injury. They don't expect her to miss significant time. I wouldn't be surprised if she misses a game or two. But good news for somebody who's in the conversation for the Women's Player of the Year. But that's really kind of the only news that I saw. So I'm going to throw it over to Kathy for the Amos angle here tonight.
Yeah. Hey, good night, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We're on the downhill side of the work week if you're a Monday through Friday kind of person like Jeff and I are. So hope everyone's good out there with the snow. If you're in that snowstorm or staying warm, again, check local listings. But yeah, Jeff, you're right. This was, this was definitely not one of the best performances we've seen of the team this year. They definitely had to grind this one out and kind of hang on to win. They had some, a couple nice performances from a couple players, but otherwise I think, a lot of them just didn't quite seem to be able to get their legs underneath them. I just felt like they were a step behind for the most part, most of the game. They just seemed to be getting out hustled. They looked tired. I do wonder if there was some maybe let down after that UCLA game. You never know what's going on, of course, in their lives, the travel, who knows what's going on. But it just seemed to me they didn't have quite the energy that we saw from this team on Sunday. But, at the end of the day, they gutted it out and they got the win. And the win is what we absolutely needed to get in this game. So for me, that is kind of my overall thoughts.
Yeah, so Kathy, let's just go into it. And I know you like to kind of look at specific plays. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I didn't write down a whole lot, to be honest, in this first one. We just seemed to be sloppy and cold start. All of our first points came from the free throw line. Our first field goal didn't come until 5:45, which was when Sydney hit a 3 for us. It did give us the lead 7-5. And then we had a 2 from Northwestern, another 3 from Yarden. I thought, okay, well, maybe we'll have the 3s falling tonight, but it didn't quite work out that way. After that, we went kind of cold again. So, overall, that first quarter was probably, our best quarter. Lexi, I thought, came in and gave us a nice hustle play. She got a good offensive rebound to get it to Shea Chesky. We got a nice Euro step there for 2 that gave IU the lead of 16-11, and they ended up going on to win that quarter 20-11. But after that, I just really thought that it kind of became a grind out game for them to kind of muscle their way through.
Yeah, with what you said, though, I'd still give I really give the first quarter an A-. I mean, they put 20 points up on the board. I thought they finished the quarter well. A slow start, maybe on the road, I could kind of live with and just kind of see if they'll play through it. But yeah, you could kind of get the sense that there were at least a couple players in hindsight, looking back on it, that you were thinking, wow, they really weren't there from the beginning and just really struggled. Yeah. And I will say this, I agree with you. I thought the first quarter was definitely their best quarter of the night overall as a complete group. Now, there are some individuals who played better in spurts than others did,
right.
But I thought overall the first quarter, I was thinking, 20-11, we're up 9. Let's just keep pushing it out. So again, I agree with you. And I thought the first quarter was by far their best quarter. I'm going to throw it back to you. And anything else you want to add in here or pick up on?
No, just in general from there, like you mentioned, it just was really inconsistent and it wasn't great team ball. Or that there was some places here and there that we had some good ball movement, from Shea Chesky in the third quarter to find Yarden for a corner 3 to go back up after Northwestern tied it. Again, Chesky hit a 3 again. I think that was their first one for a while. Sid hit that great 3 at the end of the third quarter to end at almost 3-minute scoring drought. I didn't write a whole lot down from the second. I know I jumped right into the third, but we just really seemed to get out rebounded. In fact, we were out rebounding them in the first quarter. And by the end of the first half, they had out rebounded us 20-17 in the half. I know at one point they were up 12-5 in rebounds in that second quarter alone. So it just really, after that first quarter, like you said, it just kind of slid downhill from there. And it just seemed to just kind of slow down. So those were just some of the kind of plays I saw in the second quarter leading into the third.
Well, the second quarter, I thought just got out hustled, and I realized they probably looked sluggish, but I just felt like got out hustled, and I'm sure that got addressed, or at least it was brought up at halftime that you're just getting out hustled, flat out out hustled, and that can't happen, especially on the road against this Northwestern team that was 0-4 in the league coming into the night. And again, it showed up in the rebounding. It showed up in some of the silly turnovers. I think I told you before we went on. I think when I looked at halftime, they had 7 turnovers for the half. Right. 5 of them were in the second quarter, obviously, and didn't shoot very well. You look at the second quarter alone, they finally looked a little better, but it was 5 for 13, but it wasn't even that until the last couple shots of the second quarter. Even at one point there, I was wondering if they were going to get out of single digits in the quarter. I thought the third quarter looked better from an energy standpoint. They just, and this is one of the things I want to come back to before we head to the fourth quarter that I mentioned to you, and I want to get your thoughts a little bit about, is that we were talking about in the pre-show. The floor for this team, when they just aren't clicking offensively, when they're not making shots, and when they struggle at times to take care of the ball. And tonight I thought was an example of kind of what we saw in the Harvard game. And unfortunately, they weren't able to get out of the Harvard game with a win. Luckily, Harvard, Northwestern's probably not as good as Harvard. But my point is, I think what we're getting is the floor for this team is lower than what we've been used to. And I think that sometimes, hits us kind of upside the head. It's like, wow, what's going on? And we just got to kind of accept it, that when this team isn't as good, when they're not playing their best. And as Joe pointed out in the Workaholics, good teams have to find a way to win. But also the ceiling isn't as high. I'm not sure, even when they're clicking on all cylinders, everything's going well, if they were shooting 65% for the game, I'm still not sure this is a team that's putting up 90, 95 in a game like we would have seen the last few years. So right now, this is a team that has some flaws, that has some limitations, but they're finding ways to win. And we talked about this in the last post-game show, that just had to find a way to win, because winning tonight puts you at 3-1 in the league, keeps you in that top half of the league, at least for the next couple days. But I kind of wanted to get your thoughts about what you thought, my comments about, the floor being lower and the ceiling may not be as high.
Yeah, I think that's right, Jeff. I know we got a couple of nice players and transfers coming in with Shea and with Caroline Striplin, and I really appreciate everything that they've brought to the team. But like we've mentioned, we really needed a huge collective effort to replace Mackenzie in particular. But we also had Sarah Scalia last year too. That's a huge gap to fill, and it's just not enough talent there, I think, to fill that, like we have seen in the last candidly 4 to 5 years, right? We had Grace come in through there and Mackenzie in particular, but in general, I think the collective talent was a little bit better in some of those previous teams, and we've gotten used to that. And like you mentioned, with that talent, we've been able to really exceed sometimes even expectations that we might have had. But now the expectations have been higher, and now that we're back, to a little bit lower talent level, we're not going to be able to meet those same expectations that we had with the previous team. So I think it's not probably fair to put on this team to expect that they're going to be able to make a huge run. I mean, potentially they could, but to make a huge run in the tournament and, take on a South Carolina and play them down to the wire. I just don't think this team is built that way. I think that they can hang with some players from teams from time to time. But as we saw in the UCLA game, they just don't quite have the firepower to be able to hang there for 4 quarters. So, for me, I think that it comes down to they grind it out. Is that the right? They got the win tonight, right? And they were able to find that way to win. So that was the most important thing. But yeah, I think you hit it spot on the head there. We just have to kind of readjust our expectations at this point as Indiana basketball fans.
Yeah, I hope this isn't all messed up because Kathy, you locked up on me for a little bit. I don't know if
you locked up on me too. I thought I lost you.
Yeah, so I don't know. This may all be all over the place. So anybody who's listening on the video on the audio podcast may be wondering what's going on. But yeah, I totally agree. From the standpoint that what you're saying. And then in the fourth quarter, they had to make some plays. Now, they also made a couple glowing errors as well, kind of down the stretch, a turnover on an inbounds play that, that just really can't happen. But fourth quarter, I thought really Shea Chesky really stepped to the forefront.
She took over. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. In fact, like you'd mentioned, I like to write down some of the plays, not necessarily because I want to regurgitate everything I write down, but I do it as well to kind of help me form context around what I'm seeing in the game and go back and look at it at a high level. And when I look at what I wrote down in the third and the fourth quarter, Shea Chesky's name is on almost every play that I wrote down. She had a great drive through contact and make that and one to go up 51-46. She hit another one after Northwestern had given up we gave up a 3 to Northwestern and so on and so forth. Another big 3 with 105 left to take the lead back, which I thought was huge. I think if it wasn't 900 program wins, that to me would have been a great banner moment, right? Like I think that really solidified it with 1:05 to go. And Shea hit that huge 3 when Northwestern had taken the lead from us for the first time. One thing I did point out on kind of the negative side, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are overall on her play, is Chloe Moore McNeil. She just was not there, in my opinion, from beginning to end. The first time she scored for us, she got fouled with 29 seconds left and hit some free throws. She ended up with only 3 points because she went 3 of 4 from the line. But I just felt like we needed a lot more from Chloe tonight, and literally on both ends. Most of the time, I feel like defensively she was there. But tonight, she just didn't seem quite with the flow of the game. Again, who knows what's going on off the court? Maybe there's some things that were on her minds coming in. But, at the end of the day, we're watching the basketball game. We're talking about the basketball game and going 0 for 5 from the field. Only 3 points, a turnover, and a couple fouls in 30 minutes is not what you want to see from your five-year senior. But what are your thoughts on Chloe today?
I totally agree with you. I just, it's one of those that just boggles my mind. And we've had Chloe on the show before. Really like Chloe. We're, friend of the show, we'll say. But the games IU hasn't played well, you can almost correspond to the games where Chloe's been non-existent on the offensive end. And I'm sorry, for our point guard, our fifth-year point guard, to be scoreless basically for 39 minutes, it just can't happen. I hate to use the word unacceptable because we won, but it really to me, it borders on unacceptable. Yeah, because she's got to be able to she got to be getting us 8 to 10 a game. I mean, I don't want Chloe necessarily getting us 20 a game. If she does it on a given night, great. But I don't need her to get 20 every night. What we need is 8 to 10, and then the 6-7 assists that she's going to get. And even with that tonight a little bit, she only had 4 assists. And again, on a night we didn't shoot the ball very well either. But I wish we could find a way to get Chloe going to where she is consistent. I think that's kind of been the theme for this team anyway, is inconsistency throughout the year. And it really shows up as much on the offensive end as anywhere. Because like you said earlier, defensively, we weren't bad. We only gave up 64. Yeah. So, but anyway, I totally agree with you about Chloe. But anything else you want to talk about here, or do you want to move on to some of the numbers?
Yeah, let's talk numbers.
Go ahead. I'll let you go first. Let's focus on some of these team numbers here.
Team numbers. Yeah. I think the big one is 39%. That's their field goal percentage. They were consistent at least throughout the game, but it was consistent, 38% in the first half and ending at 39% for the game, only on 22 of 56 shooting. And with that, that's just kind of end characteristics. It came along with the 36% or 8 of 22 from 3-point land. And I think that's really, to your point, we got to understand that, at least in my opinion, the way that the ball is being shot and falling for this team is how this team is going to go. And I know that sounds obvious, like, oh, yeah, of course they have to make more points than the other team. But this team, it seems really heightened that if they're not shooting well, they don't have a way to kind of turn it around and make it up and figure out a different way to score, right? Like what I would have liked to seen in the past, right? We had Grace with her mid-range jumper, or we could get it down to McKenzie, or, I liked what Shea did in the second half, but we need to see that consistently when they're really struggling with their jump shot. So we just don't have the person who can drive to the basket still and get us a bucket, right? So that to me is the first number I actually wanted to start with, was field goals, plus 3 and overall.
Yeah, and it's not just Grayson McKenzie. It was Allie Padberg. It was Lexa Golbe. It was, it was Sarah Sky. It was others who could find ways to do things to score for you. And I think kind of be that alpha, that would, be like, get me the ball. I'm going to make a winning play. And go back far enough, way before we started the show. It was Tyra Buss. It was Amanda Cahill, even, with that. So I'm going to go here. I was kind of surprised by this when I looked at the box score after the game. 18 assists on 22 made baskets. So even though they didn't shoot it well, they were sharing the ball. They were getting people in, getting the ball to people in good positions to score.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other one that I think one of the numbers I'm actually maybe most disappointed with, especially after their effort in the UCLA game. Again, I know that we got out-rebounded by UCLA by 10, but again, UCLA is out-rebounding their opponents by 20. Northwestern has been about even with all of their opponents, or even getting out-rebounded. They out-rebounded us tonight, 35-32. And to me, that was one of my most disappointments tonight. Was, again, back to what you were saying, especially in the second quarter and what we were talking about then. They just got out-hustled tonight, and rebounding often is not just positioning, but it's also hustle. And that number shows me a lot of what happened on the floor tonight, and why maybe we're coming away with a win here. I get that. We sound a little down for a win, but I think we should have been able to win a little easier than this. It shouldn't have came down to the wire. And that number to me is very indicative of kind of, again, how, in my opinion, they just looked tired. Again, that 35-32 rebounding margin. So that was the next number I wanted to jump onto.
Yeah, and I will go to this. Northwestern 26-15 in bench points, that they outscored IU. And a little bit of that was, we talked a little bit, Melanie Daly. And I remember the Daly girl, as I watched her play, I was like, this is a kid that has hurt us the last couple of years in games against Northwestern. But she came off the bench tonight with 17. So that was a big part of Northwestern's, production. But you look at, you look at, again, 26-15. So that was a number I was looking at as well.
Yeah, that's true. And to your point with the bench, though, we really only played 7 players tonight. We had technically you had 9 players, but Jules and Hannah Sandbeck both only collectively played 3. So I was kind of curious on your opinion on that, or why maybe we didn't see, especially Jules, again. In our private Discord that we have, somebody's theory was that she got, kind of drove on and defensively beat a couple of times in the first half. And so Coach Moore didn't want to go back and test that. I didn't see that personally. So I was just kind of curious if you caught those plays, or what your theory is, and potentially why Jules didn't get back in at all in the second half.
I honestly don't know. I did not see that. And I just, even if it happens, I think Jules brings an energy to a team that needed some energy tonight. I don't understand why she only got 3 minutes tonight. Now, obviously, I'm not the staff. I'm not in the practices, but this is a young lady that's actually done some good things this year. And when she had the opportunity to start, I thought played pretty well when Sid was out. So I don't understand all of a sudden the 3 minutes. Honestly, I was a little surprised when I was looking at this, that in the 19 minutes she played, and again, plus minus is a flawed stat, but I didn't really feel like Lexi played that well, but it showed up, at least on the plus minus, she was a +9. So, but I didn't feel like Lexi brought much. So I was like, I'm kind of at a loss sometimes for why Jules gets, when she gets time and when she doesn't. And I get and I think the one thing we just keep coming back to here is Coach Morin has certain players that she likes in rotation with each other. And Jules right now is basically Sid's backup. And it was a little bit different tonight, but Sydney stayed out of foul trouble for the most part, and Sid played 37 minutes. So there's your 3 minutes for Jules.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I mean, Sydney did end up with 4 fouls, but they kind of came later in the game there. Right. So, who else have we not talked about? Lily ended up with 8 points on 3 of 7 shooting. She only played 19 minutes. Same thing there, like 19 minutes for her and 21 for Caroline Striplin. So about half and half, which is about what we've been seeing from her. She was one that ended up kind of finishing the game out. Overall, in terms of eye tests, I thought Caroline looked a little bit more comfortable in there. The thing for me with Lily that I really hope that she can figure out what to work on here as we continue through her junior season is finishing around the basket. She had a number of really, really good looks tonight that, again, she didn't get to go in. Some of them contested, but a couple of them were just not contested. And she's going to have to figure out how to finish better, even through contact. And that's the biggest thing I would like to see improvement and growth from Lily's game.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But I just think that Lily shows promise, and she shows that she's willing to work at it. And we've seen Lily have some good games. Tonight was not a good game for her. I'll be the first to admit that. From an efficiency standpoint. The other thing I noticed about Lily, and maybe as a byproduct of only getting 19 minutes, she only had 3 rebounds. There are times when I want to see her be a little more aggressive on the glass and grabbing some more rebounds, even if she only get about 19 minutes. I'd like to see her get 5 or 6 rebounds in that stretch of 19 minutes. So anything else team-wise or individuals you want to talk about before we hit the game ball?
No, maybe we should stop because I don't think we're necessarily going to talk about Yarden in the next segment here. So maybe
I already go ahead. I'm not trying to cut you off. Go ahead.
Her. Yeah, but did you have anything else? I mean, the glaring thing for her is just the 6 turnovers, right? She ended up with 10 points and 5 rebounds, but boy, she was really struggling tonight, and I didn't see much from her defensively. So that was my question for you too. I thought she was fine on defense, but nothing that really stuck out to me in terms of positive. So.
I felt like she was just as far as the whole game went. I mentioned this earlier. I wasn't trying to cut you off. I'd kind of given my thoughts about Yarden earlier, and so I didn't need to go back to her stats here. So let's move on to the game ball here, and I'll let you go first since I'm hosting tonight.
Yeah, no problem. So for me, this ended up being pretty easy game ball vote for me. That was Shea Chesky. Shea, I thought, just like I mentioned when I break down a lot of my plays, especially in that second half, I thought she just really came alive and had some great plays for us, some great hustle plays. She had one of the banner moments that we could have gone with that huge 3 again at 105. She ended up with 20 points on 6 of 12 shooting. Finally taking some 3-pointers again. That was nice to see. She was 3 of 6 there, made all her free throws, and she led the team in assists with 5 assists. So overall, I thought she just did a great job. And I thought her defense was pretty good tonight as well too. So overall, I thought Shea had the best game for us. So she gets my vote for game ball.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo that. Ditto, as Patrick Swayze would say. We're going to go with Shea Chesky as well for the game ball, and so that'll give Shea her 4th game ball of the year. And I will say this: I was kind of leaning toward Caroline Striplin here until about middle of the 4th quarter, And because she was really, because most of Shea's damage came from about the 6-7 minute mark of the fourth quarter on, and she really, really put up a lot of numbers there. And kudos to her because we needed them. But at one point, she was still, I think, beginning early in the fourth quarter, she was still in single digits. And like you said, she finished with 20 and a perfect 5 of 5 at the line. That was your number. Maybe I would have mentioned 16 of 18 at the line for the team, 89%.
Yes,
so this, right. So a very good night.
Good free throw shooting.
But so that's, as I was mentioning, that's Shea's 4th game ball award, and with that. So we'll throw it over to you, Kathy. I'll let you go first on the Grace Berger Hardest Worker Award.
Yeah. So speaking of Caroline, she's getting my vote for hardest worker. Not just the fact that she ended up with 10 points. She wasn't, that's not what we're about with the Grace Berger hardest worker. I thought she was working really hard on defense, at least trying her best with Williams down low. But a number of times I saw her diving on the floor for some loose balls and working really hard on trying to get open, and she made some nice plays. She missed a couple shots that, in earlier games this year, she's making that kind of mid-range jumper right around that kind of free throw line-ish area. So I thought she was working really hard tonight. And so for me, she is getting my vote for Grace Berger hardest worker.
Well, we're going to have to split this. We're going to have to get some help from the workaholics here, because I'm going to go with Sydney Parrish here. Sid finished with 12 points, 7 rebounds, which was the team high 7 rebounds. She also had 2 assists. She had 2 blocks and 3 steals. Now, she also had 3 turnovers to go with it. But across the line here, I really felt like Sid, and I thought Sid's defense was pretty solid tonight. Not great, but pretty solid. So I'm going to go with Sid for my Grace Berger hardest worker here with the 12 points, 7 rebounds, as I said.
Yeah, so no problem. That we already had one vote for her in the workaholics, and we got another one with Eagle Eye, and she was my runner up anyway. So we're just going to go ahead and give that to Sydney. So congratulations to Sid. And
that becomes what, her second hardest worker.
Yes,
her second hardest worker of the year award. So Kathy, let's throw it over to you real quick. I know you've been doing some numbers watch here, and right now Chloe's going to have to pick up the pace a little bit if she wants to get to the 1,000.
Yeah. So we'll just fly through these. They didn't change a whole lot tonight. So we've been watching points for both Chloe and Yarden on their quest to get to 1,000 points. So Chloe only had 3 points tonight. So she still has 42 points to go at 958. She's now averaging less than 9 points a game. Yarden is got 10 points tonight, and she's up to 940. So she's doing fine there too. So probably about 4 or 5 games, maybe they might get there, as long as we don't have too many 3-point games again from Chloe. She's been kind of all over the place this year. But anyway, also with the assists for Chloe tonight takes her up to 422. And then Yarden's 2 made 3-pointers takes her up to 171. So with Yarden's next 3-pointer, she will tie for 8th place overall in program history. So that is where we are with our numbers.
All right, let's talk about our upcoming game here with the Iowa Hawkeyes that will be on the road Sunday, January the 12th, 3:00 Eastern, 2 Central. That game will be on Peacock. And Iowa now with a new coach, Jan Jensen, in her first year, but she's been with this program forever. She was with Lisa Bluter going all the way back to her playing days at Drake. So this is really not going to be a lot of new stuff that you're going to see per se. Jan Jensen, a very much Lisa Bluter disciple here. I'm sure she's given a little bit of twist, but you're probably going to see a lot of similarities that you've seen from the Lisa Bluter teams as well. As I mentioned, she's in her first year. She played at Drake. She was the Missouri Valley Conference MVP and leading scorer when she was in school. She spent 30 plus seasons as an assistant for Lisa Bluter. They're led by Lucy Olson, the Villanova transfer, averaging 17 a game and 5 assists. Hannah Stolke, coming off her Freshman of the Year award in the Big Ten, 13 a game, 8 rebounds. Addison O'Grady at 13 a game and 5 rebounds. Sydney Affolter at 7 a game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. And Kylie Feuerbach is averaging 6. So that kind of gives you the top players you're going to be keeping an eye on. But obviously, Olsen and Stolke will be the 2 main guns. So we're going to have Kathy kind of take a look at the numbers here for the team.
Yeah, just as FYI, Hannah Stulke's a junior this year now.
So. Oh, sorry. 2 years ago was freshman of the year.
That's right. She still was freshman of the year, just not coming off of it fresh. So, overall, Iowa as a team, their record is 12-3 and 2-2 in the conference. So as a team right now, they are averaging 77 points per game, which is 36 in the country. Defensively, they are 64.8, which is 103rd in the country, which sounds like you would be like not too super excited about, right? However, it is important to finish or talk about up until this year, Iowa's not been known for their defense,
right?
Even on the women's side. Last year, they finished 319th in the nation. So to go from 319th to 183rd, I think that's where you see Jan Jensen putting maybe a different stamp on this Iowa team. They ranked 61st in tempo, 47.6% field goal, which is 18th in the country, 53% effective field goal, which is 17th in the country. So right there, again, continuing on with their offensive proficiency that we have seen the last number of years with them. They shoot 32.6% from three, which is 119th. So a little bit down. Again, you would expect that after losing Caitlin Clark, who was just pretty good, I think, at 3-point shooting. Rebounding, interesting. Their rebounding is 7.8 rebounding margin versus 3.9 for Indiana. And then on turnovers, that they do get a bit prone for turnovers. They are about even in their turnover margin. I think, if I remember from my brain, they're right around averaging 16 turnovers per game. So, I think, what are they ranked 24th right now too? So,
yes.
They've been doing really well this year. They've, of course, not just blowing people out of the water like we had seen historically, but we didn't expect them. But, putting a lot of pieces together after losing 4 of their starters, having Lucy Olson come in was a huge pickup for them. And she has really filled in, I think, really nicely into their lineup. So I think, what you were really going to have to see from Indiana here on Sunday is managing the crowd, right? Like, they are still selling out their crowds, and how are we going to react to that? And how can we handle Lucy Olson? My bigger concern is, how are we going to handle Hannah Stulke down low and Addison O'Grady both? Actually Addison's, I think she's the one playing down low for them, and Hannah's been moved out to that four position. So I think those 3 in particular are going to be interesting. Of course, obviously, that's easy to say because on paper they're their 3 leading scorers, all in double digits, but you got to find a way to contain at least one of them and make sure the other ones stay around their average or less. So we got to find a way to rebound better in this game as well too. So those are kind of my things I'll be looking for. But Jeff, what are your kind of keys and things you'll be looking for on Sunday?
I totally agree with you about the rebounding. I totally agree with you about the crowd. And I was just thinking back here in my head real quick, Kathy, over the last 3 years that we've been to Iowa. Went out to Iowa, won a big road game 3 years ago. 2 years ago, got beat at the buzzer on a Caitlin Clark shot that, just was a heartbreaker. And then last year, though, just absolutely basically got blown out. I mean, the score ended up a little bit closer, not like single digits, but it was one of those road games last year where like Stanford and Iowa really showed up, where we just, we weren't in it early, got blown out early, and really never were in the game. And so I'm interested to see which game's going to be this year. This is not the same Iowa team. They don't have Caitlin Clark, Mr. Obvious, but it is a little bit different team that has maybe a few more weapons overall than what they've actually had in the past. Nobody's going to go out and get 35, 37 a game like Caitlin was, but like you said, Lucy Olson is a legit, type All-American player, and she was a big get for them in the portal. And then also you throw in Stulke, you throw in O'Grady, you throw in the others we talked about. They may not be scoring as much, but like you said, they're not giving up as much either. So this is going to be a little bit different scenario, but I'm just looking to see which team shows up. If we go in there and we play with some energy and we get off to a good start, I think then that becomes a really, a battle. But that's why I thought tonight was so important. To go back to the last podcast, I just really felt like winning tonight gets you to 3-1. I felt like if you went 1-1 on this road trip, you were going to be in pretty good shape. I at the beginning of the season when we did our predictions, I didn't have us winning in Iowa City for this coming game. So if we could find a way to get that game and win it, then that would be an interesting way to, that'd be great, because now it puts you in a better position as you head down the race. But I didn't have this game going along anyway. So, and speaking of which, around the Big Ten tonight, some really good action here in a big game up in Ann Arbor. Ohio State with an 84-77 win over Michigan. And we talked about this a little bit. Michigan's going to start being a little bit desperate now. This is a game, I believe, that drops them to either 1-3 or 1-4 in the league. And so they're, they were a team that people had some hopes for being in the top half of the league or maybe toward the top third of the league. And right now they're struggling. And again, part of this right now, the other thing I think we also got to come to grips with. That's what I was going to say. You took the words. I think some of this is you also going to have to look at who you're playing and when you're playing them. Yeah. Because right now, Michigan has had they've played USC and UCLA and now OSU. So you're talking about three of the top teams in the league. Yeah. And so that there's no shame in that, but losing at home hurts. That's the key here in this game, to lose at home. I've always been a big believer that if you want to win the league, you got to win your home games and then you got to steal a few on the road. And the more you steal on the road, the better. So that's why that one hurts. And then Michigan State ranked, I think they were 21st, goes out to Lincoln and loses to Nebraska 85-80. And as one that Kathy and I are kind of currently watching here and trying to update, it's actually now USC's up 75-72 with 30 seconds to go in the game. I've got it on the TV here as we've been, in the sound off, but again, kind of stealing glances out of here. And that kind of goes into our next one. UCLA last night just blows out Purdue. Yeah, way to go. UCLA blows out Purdue in West Lafayette last night. They're 5-0 right now. Ohio State, as we said, already won. Maryland and USC are currently 4-0 along with Ohio State, but whoever wins this game, whoever loses this game is going to drop out of the ranks of undefeated. But right now, as of this moment that we're doing the podcast, there are 4 teams undefeated in Big Ten conference action.
Yeah, I was just looking at the Michigan schedule in particular because I knew that they were really front loaded with their Big Ten schedule. So yeah, like you mentioned, they played the top 3 teams. The other team they played was Northwestern tonight. So it gets significantly easier after this. They go on the road to Purdue. They're at home against Washington. They're at home against Rutgers. An interesting one will be up against Minnesota in Minnesota. Yep. Minnesota's been playing some really good ball. Yes. Winning again tonight, 76-50 over Rutgers. I think that's right. I think Minnesota in particular is one to keep an eye on. I think they could be one of the dark horses. We talked about this in our preseason. And we're like, there's always a team that underperforms and there's always a team that overperforms. I think Minnesota is going to potentially be that overperforming team. So, that Michigan State Nebraska game was really close, really far away. Like Nebraska was up by 12 or 13 at one point in that third quarter, maybe even early into the fourth. So, so we'll see here if USC can hang on with 15 seconds to go. So we'll try to update that before the end of the podcast here today. Yeah. So
15 seconds to go now. And then tomorrow night, one we should have mentioned, because this actually directly affects IU and actually a little less time for Iowa to prepare. Tomorrow night, Iowa travels to Illinois in what is almost a must-win game for Illinois.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So Illinois is, I think, one of those teams that has not quite been performing as well as we thought with all of the people they had coming back. So they'll be an interesting one to kind of watch as well.
And we did want to talk about a couple things real quick. You look at the net rankings. I'm not going to go through all of them, but IU's net ranking going into tonight had basically stayed right where it was. They're right about 38. They were 38th in the net ranking coming into tonight. I doubt that number is going to move up much. I could see it moving down a little just because Northwestern is not going to be considered like a quad 1 win, I would think, just because of Northwestern having a struggle. And we were asked on the last podcast, and I think Eagle Eye was asking on the Workaholics again here about strength schedule. According to WarrenNolan.com, right now, currently, IU has the 10th. Their strength of schedule is 10th. So I'm assuming that means they are the 10th. They've played the 10th toughest schedule, which I'm really kind of interested in how that got that number, because I didn't think our non-conference outside of the Bahamas trip, especially with Baylor and North Carolina, I didn't think the non-conference schedule was all that good.
That's what we had talked about before. I mean, Harvard is probably helping to bolster that, but 10th sounds really high to me. But so it would be interesting if we can find some other places to kind of contrast that to it.
So, but anything you want to add in here about the Big Ten overall, Kathy, before we wrap it up here?
No, I don't think so. Boy, it's going to be a fun January to watch as we keep hoping to update people on the end of this USC Maryland game. USC is now up 5 with 13 seconds to go. So yeah,
it's like a running play-by-play here.
I know, and we're going to turn into play-by-play podcast. It'll be great for those listening, not live.
I just want to say, as far as for final thoughts, I'll go first here. It wasn't pretty. You didn't get any style points tonight, but you got out of Evanston with a win, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. What I'm really hoping for is that they got this out of the system. They can go look at some film. They can understand they got to play with the same energy that they played with in the UCLA game. Hopefully we don't have another second quarter like the UCLA game, but the energy they brought in that game from tip until the final buzzer was what we need from this team. And they did not bring that tonight. And luckily they were playing a Northwestern team who's really struggling right now, and it didn't hurt them. They go into Iowa City on Sunday with the energy we saw tonight. We're going to see a similar result to what we saw last year and lose by 20 points. If we come in on Sunday with the energy we had against UCLA, I like our chances with this team against Iowa. But it's really up to them. It's up to them on what they end up bringing and how they execute with that energy. The energy is what I'm really looking for, because at least those rebounds and all of this hustle plays that do not go into the stat lines. So that's what I'll be really at the end of the day looking for on Sunday afternoon. Okay.
All right. So coming up, we'll have our next post-game show. We're actually going to do this a day after the game, we're hoping. And we still have a little bit of tentative here. But right now, we're planning to be back on Monday, January 13th, to recap the Iowa game from Sunday at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central. But if that changes, we'll let you know. Watch the X feed and watch the Substack feed. We'll let you know for sure. But right now we're planning Monday night, January 13th at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central for our next show to recap the Iowa game from Sunday. If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Backhome Network. That's the @ symbol, youtube.com/@Backhome Network. You can be a part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logos. Also, a big thank you to Bob Thompson for the music you heard through the broadcast. And a thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Monday. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
All right. Well, I'm going to hang up on you, Jeff. I want to go.
No, you're not.
Sorry if I
interrupt you a little bit, but yeah, I'm watching the last 11 seconds or so here. But I think USC's got this one pretty much put away.
Yeah,
Maryland's running out of time in possessions. It's going to be hard to get two possessions unless USC turns it over. But yeah, I'll get you out here, and we'll talk again over the weekend. But let's plan on Monday for our next show.
Sounds good. All right.
See you,
good night, everyone. Bye-bye.